In this video, we are going to learn about fundamental terms of LLM like tokens, context, and inference, and how to choose the right model for our product. And to understand this, we are going to build a use case which is a customer support chatbot for our product. So let's dive deep into it. So in this use case, the customer will ask query to a chatbot which is using LLM in the background and it has the context about our product. So this LLM will process the query based on the relevant context and it gives the response back to the user in the chat UI. So before choosing any model, we need to take care of few parameters which comes first speed, like the time taken to generate response, which is basically an inference. Then comes the cost. Obviously, we need to get the accurate response based on the optimal budget. Then comes the quality and then comes the context. But before diving into each aspect, we need to understand some fundamentals like token, context window, then comes the training and inference. So let's dive into each aspect one by one. So first comes the tokens. So tokens are fundamental unit of text generated by LLM by breaking the single text into smaller components like words, subwords, or characters. And it is essential to know these tokens because the API cost based on the total tokens count. Models generate the next token in sequence, and these models have a limit on total input and output tokens. So now we have understood tokens. Let's understand context. So context are information provided to the LLM to generate relevant response based on the user's query. It consists of user's input, which is basically user prompt, any relevant information to the query, and the previous turns in your conversation to give you a relevant response based on the query. So now we understood context. Let's understand context window, which is basically the amount of total tokens the model can consist of. And as the total tokens grow, the chances of model hallucinating also increases. Now we have understood the context window. Let's understand the quality, because the thing is these models are trained on different data sets, and as these models are trained on different data sets, it is essential to know which model is suitable for a particular use case. So now we have understood these terms. Let's understand inference, which is basically the computation process used by the trained model to generate response based on the new given data. So it is basically the time taken by the model to process the information and give response to the user. So now we have understood all these terms. Let's now dive deep into our model choices and let's brainstorm on which model can be suitable for our use case. And this explains the importance of having proper context for our chatbot. If the chatbot, or let's say our model, does not have enough context, it will hallucinate, or let's say don't give the proper response as expected. But if we provide the proper context, the model will give the relevant information as per our expectation. So now we are going to choose between three models. Two of them are open source models and third one is Claude 4.5. Right now you are seeing Groq, which is a platform where you can host and run open source models in their own infrastructure. Groq stands out when it comes to infrastructure which provides fast inference, and as we know what inference is about, which gives you the fast response generation amongst these open source models hosted in Groq. So now we are going to go under the developer section, and in the docs we can see that they have provided us a documentation to know about some API reference, or right now we are going to explore the model section. They have their own Groq compound model which we can use, but as of now let's compare between two models, which is GPT-OSS 120 and second one is Llama 3.3 70 billion parameter model. So you can these two are open source models from their own, let's say Meta and OpenAI community, and you can clearly see the specs like difference. In when it comes to speed, Llama stands out, but it is not a very important, I would say, factor. If we see the price per 1 million tokens, GPT-OSS stands out. You can clearly see its price is $0.15 per 1 million input tokens, $0.6 for 1 million output tokens. Llama is bit expensive when it comes to the price per 1 million tokens. And if you see the context window, they are absolutely same as compared to each other, but GPT stands out when it comes to the max completion tokens. So they provide more tokens for, I would say, response generation thing. And I would say when it comes to choosing right model, you should always see for the price per 1 million tokens, the context window, and how much they are allowing for completion tokens. As now we have seen, it comes GPT-OS says it's the best fit when it comes to the open source models for our use case as of now. If we go to the Haiku 4.5 in this Claude documentation, they have given us the latest models comparison, and if you can see the for Claude Haiku 4.5, their pricing is $1 per 1 input million token. So it's far expensive as compared to even GPT-OSS also, or also Llama. So as our use case is very I would say simple, which is based on the product information, the LLM just needs to process and give information. GPT-OSS is a good model, and I would say perfect fit for our use case. You can later on explore the other documentation of these from the Claude platform docs. You can see how to choose the perfect model, which we just discussed right now. So option is to first of all start with a fast and cost effective, and GPT-OSS, considering they have the fast inference and cheaper for our use case, it definitely stands out. And start with most capable model, as our use case is not so, I would say, complex, or I would say not based on some math calculation. We don't need Haiku 4.5 as of now. So when it comes to some heavy task, we will definitely go to the Haiku 4.5, because we can't compromise performance when it comes to cost also. So we need to take care of the budget and the performance both at the same time. And you can also see the system prompts for each Claude models. These Claude models cost you a lot, and the reason behind it is their system prompt. If you, let's say, go to Claude Haiku 4.5, and if you see the system prompt length, it definitely makes sense that they have so many, I would say, input tokens in their context, and hence it costs us $1 million per 1 million input tokens. So as soon as this context window grows, the cost per this API call also increases. And if you check, compare it with Opus 4.8, they have very large system prompt if you compare it with the Haiku's system prompt. And hence they cost more as compared to Haiku 4.5. So that's why we learned about these fundamentals of understanding tokens, context window, so that we can make a judgment of why these models cost so much and which model to choose for a use case. So as now we have seen each model, let's also analyze the API costing, like how do you actually analyze. So if you see, we are considering metric of cost and also these models. Now we have gone through each model, we can make a decision on which model can be suitable for our use case. And we can clearly see that GPT OSS, which is open source, which is hosted on the Groq, is suitable, and it is, I would say, cost optimal, and also gives a I would say, better results, as it is just processing the query based on the product information that we will give later on. So as now we have decided that we are going to use GPT OSS, let's try to understand with real use case. So we will go to the playground of this Groq platform, and you can clearly see we have this chatbot, and under the hood it is using the LLM, which is our decided model, which is GPT OSS 120 billion. And you can clearly see like they have kept some other aspects like temperature. So I will explain what is temperature is. So temperature is a parameter which decides the creativity of the model. You expect the model to behave, or let's say give response in a certain manner. So the more temperature, the more creativity the model will have while generating the response. So if you want to have more control over your output, or let's say as per your expectations, you can reduce your temperature so that you can get more control over your outputs. You can see there we can also keep a limit on max completion tokens, then reasoning of effort and streaming. So if we keep stream as true, then we can see the each token generation at the time. So we need to give the knowledge of a product. So I have prepared a system prompt, and I'm going to paste it over here. So you can see I have kept given a persona for this chatbot, which is a customer support chatbot for our let's say a product, and which is basically a project management SaaS platform. And I have given some more data, which is the key features of the platform, the account management, the free plan and pro plan and all. So based on these, I would say context, now it will give us the relevant information. So in this user, you can see as soon as I have kept this in the system prompt, it included another JSON attribute, or let's say object, which contains role as system and the content which I have pasted it right now. So in the user, I will now write my message. You can see it will appear in the content section over here. So you can observe the moment I gave my system prompt, it included a new JSON object with the role as system and the content that I have pasted. As soon as I write something in the user section, you can see the content will appear over here. So as of now, I will ask this query, which is I want to invite a team member to our project, which is based on our product. So once I submit, it gives you the streaming response, which is it gives us the reasoning. And based on the context that I have provided, like going to the settings and all, it gives us step-by-step thing. Now we will go for another, I would say, query, which is understanding the difference between their free and pro plan. So once I submit, it will give us the difference, like we can have the following features or aspects of the product. We can create unlimited projects, which is all included in our system prompt data. Like you can see the pricing is free for $29 per month. We can have this build annually. We can have like 2 GB file storage and all, and also the limitations like max 50 members. So as per the context we have provided, it gave us a response. And I think it pretty much perform its job. And you can also see that as per, I would say, our chat grows, it included all the previous turns. And as I told you, once this context grows, the cost per API call also increases. This was the whole use case demo where we understood the tokens, context window, inference, then how to choose between each model, and we just saw the real demo use case, and we just saw how it works by playing it with the Groq's playground. If you want to use open source models and you don't want to host it anywhere, you can play with Groq's platform, and you can have some at a limit you can use their API for free. They have some rate limits that you need to take care of, but for building a POC or any use case, Groq is a better choice, unless you want to test for how this API is going to work for your use case. If you then in that case you need to pay for their API, like if you are using Claude API or OpenAI's API.